is William Tincup and Ryan Leary, and you are watching and listening to the You Should Know podcast. We've got Ray and Jason on from Thrive HR. They have a podcast as well. Definitely want to talk a little bit about that. But today we're going to be talking about ethics and ethical reasoning and decision making in HR. And they've got a client base. They've had a lot of experiences together and with their clients. So let's just jump right into it. Let's see. Jason, would you do us a favor and introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, Jason Walker, and one of the co-founders of Thrive, and we've been in business about 4 years, and I'm in Houston, Texas.
H-Town.
Yeah. And Ray Ramirez. I also co-founded Thrive with Jason about 4 years ago. I am based in Denver, Colorado, and really appreciate you guys having us on.
100%.
Nice.
Now,
Well, I'm
Thrive
Ryan,
HR.
and I didn't co-found Thrive HR.
No, you
And the Phillies didn't win the World Series either when they played.
Hey!
Astros.
I'm sorry, your mute button is on. Where the hell is that thing?
Oh,
Good
so
Lord!
we're
How do I?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love it.
yeah, I'm getting
Listen.
hot flashes right now.
But Bryce Harper is awesome. Okay, fair.
That's
He's,
true.
Covered.
he's very good.
He's
Yeah.
very good. We'll keep that.
You know, that's
All right.
interesting. He is very good. I don't see the hype.
Everyone else does.
You go to the stadium and it is like Bryce is the only thing in the stadium, but honestly, he's just another player for me.
We have that on the Astros. It's Bregman. I don't understand what the hype is about Bregman. Like every time I watch Bregman, he like flies out. I'm like, why is everybody so happy about Bregman?
Yeah.
Why are we still talking about him?
Yeah.
That's too funny. Well, what if y'all take a stab at explaining Thrive to the audience? What are we doing? What's the problem we're solving?
Well, we are an HR advisory and consulting firm. We really have kind of three areas of business. One is recruiting. Another is fractional HR, where we basically are the HR department for companies. And then the third is our consulting services, where we do things like comp consulting. We do a lot of merger and acquisition consulting, process improvement, things of that nature. And then as part of that, we're also doing a lot of work on the AI space. And Jason, you can maybe talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah, we're doing a lot in the AI space. Like Ray said, one of the things that we realized very quickly was that there had to be a rationalization of the hype of AI versus what AI could actually truly do. And so we have a number of partners that are AI partners that we're engaged with, where we're actually taking the products that they have and we're putting them into the field, we're putting them into HR organizations, and they're actually using the AI products. So we're one of the few HR advisory firms right now that's actually the bridge from the product into the customer, and the AI product is being used. So we're really proud of that because we can actually show tangible results with the AI partners that we're working with. And so that's really exciting because a lot of it right now is so hyped that there's not a lot of actual proof that AI can successfully work within the organization.
Do you do the implementations or do you do the rollouts on your side and you use their
We
data and then spit it back to them?
We do a variety of things. So, for instance, we have an AI tool that we use that's a voice-enabled AI tool.
Mm-hmm.
And that AI tool can do reference checks. It can do 360 review, can do employment verification. It can get any information where you were having a person pick up the phone and call an individual. We're using it for that. And then we're also really heavily utilizing AI for staffing and TA. That's just the right place for AI to exist.
100%.
And so that's where we're helping clients implement those types of solutions, plus a lot of very good listening solutions where the AI can call or can reach out to 10,000 people in a week and get information back faster than humans can, where it would take them 6 months to call that many people and get information back. We can do it in 2 weeks and then have all the information through the dashboard curated and have findings in ways that are so much more quicker than the traditional ways that things used to be done.
So I know we're going to get into conversation around ethical business practices
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. But before we do, where do you find most of your clients today are calling you in? Is it in the recruiting process, or is it post application and more around the
Mm-hmm.
communication and moving them through the hiring pipeline? Where are you seeing most of that activity?
Yeah,
It's really in the fractional HR space.
yeah. Yep, it is. We're getting a lot of calls where organizations have restructured. Yeah,
Right.
they've taken out
Mm.
HR, and now they need, guess what? The CEO and the CFO are doing HR, and they're like, and payroll, and they're like, we do not want to do this. Can
Yeah.
you take this off our hands? So we're seeing a lot of that.
And
On
compliance too.
Yeah,
Probably
exactly,
a little
and
bit of
yeah,
understanding. Hey,
compliance and
if we don't get
mhm,
this right, we could get
mhm.
jammed up.
Exactly, exactly. We're
Right.
seeing a lot of work in that space. We're seeing a lot of work on the compensation side, where firms are like, I want to make sure I'm paying my people correctly, based on the market. I have no idea, and they're bringing us in, and we can help them solve that problem very, very quickly and efficiently. And then on the M&A side, companies are like, hey, we're going to acquire a couple of companies. Real example, we haven't done any HR diligence. We come in and basically we've got to kind of catch up and help them get through the process, and we're doing that for with a company right now. So yeah, so we really get involved in different parts of the process. But on the recruiting side, I mean, we've had organizations basically give us all of their recs, and we've worked ourselves out of a job by filling 20 positions.
Hmm.
In some cases, we've gotten one critical fill, a chief revenue officer, top salesperson for a tech company. We went out and found, you know, probably 10 really high quality candidates. They selected one, we got the fill. So it kind of depends on what the companies are looking for, but we really, are able to kind of pivot and solve the problem.
Yeah.
The pre-show, y'all were telling us that Ray, you were saying that y'all had worked together previously at two companies, I believe,
Hmm.
and so y'all already have kind of a working kind of relationship before you started the
Hmm.
company. How's that helped you in the 4 years that you've had Thrive? You had more years together pre-Thrive,
Hmm.
but how's that helped you as business partners?
I think the good thing is that, our personalities are different. I'm more of a uh, I tend to be a pessimist around things, especially when it relates to me. For other people around me, I'm an optimist, but when it comes to me, so I have a tendency to get really fired up about, oh my God, this is going right. Be somewhat myopic on trying to get things to go, right directionally. And Ray is definitely more laid back, so that helps sometimes when I'm like, oh, we got to get this done. So we know each other, we know our styles, and we each do things somewhat a little bit differently, and each have different strengths. So that's always great when you can leverage strengths, and there's both, and they're against your potential weaknesses.
So who is
Hmm.
the more ethical? Since we're going to talk about being ethical and
So,
all this stuff, I
wow.
mean, let's just put it out there.
Oh boy.
Who's
Well,
more ethical,
it,
right?
it's actually an interesting question. I mean, I think in terms of our ethics are above. Seriously, our ethics are above reproach between Ray and I.
Hmm.
That's one
Yeah.
of the things
Hmm.
that we are very, very focused on is being ethical.
Right.
That if you're
Yeah.
going to work with us, we're above reproach. And
Yeah.
anybody that you talk to about
Hmm.
Ray and I, you'll always find that. Now, am I more of the person that will say, God, that person that just called us is a pain in the ass, and like I wouldn't want to work with that company. Am I more direct and
You sound like
straightforward
a
on my?
Phillies fan.
I am. I really, I could be a Philly. I could be an Eagles fan. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'd go
Yeah.
that far, but I could be. But
I mean, look,
yeah, so I mean,
Ray's at the
yeah,
bar right now doing a flight of
yeah. See,
tequila.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. No, I think you're right. I mean, Jason's on target. I mean, I grew up in the barrios of San Antonio, so ethics was kind of questionable,
Yeah.
but
Where did we get this microwave? Don't
you know,
ask.
but no, I mean, a lot of it, like Jason said, comes down to parents and right and wrong, and the way we operate is very much about doing the right thing for the client, and making sure that if you want to see exactly how many minutes we're billing you, we've got the backup, we've got the data, we have no problems sharing that, and and a lot of the companies we work with are very much hey, whatever you tell us is fine. We'll just go forward and move it from there. Others are a little bit more want more transparency. We can work either way, and that's worked for us with our client base.
Well, one of the things, and I'm glad Ryan asked the
Hmm.
question, although it did kind of put you on the spot, which we normally do
I
not
like
do.
that. I like being put on the spot.
Now,
That was good.
there is no universal definition of ethics. Like the
Mm.
Hmm.
four of us could take a scenario. This is what's beautiful about like the Harvard
Hmm.
Business Review case studies, is you thrown into an ethical dilemma,
Hmm.
and four guys are going to see it four different ways.
Hmm.
So when you're dealing with clients, what you both would just think is, yeah, this is table stakes ethics. Your client might not see it that
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
Or they might be jammed up and they might want to present something in a different way. So how do how do you navigate the murky waters of getting
Hmm.
them to understand where y'all see the ethical dilemma and overcoming
Of
that ethical dilemma? And I'll start with Ray, but Jason, I'm sure you got points as
Yeah, I
well.
mean, I can give you an example. I mean, we've got a client that we've worked with for a good while. The CFO called us and said, our board of directors thinks that our top three executives are paid too much. Can you guys do a benchmark on pay for our top level executives? We
Okay.
said, sure, we can definitely do that. We know the role, we know the company, we know the market. So we went out and did an analysis on, you know, the base pay for those roles, the bonus opportunity for those roles, as well as the equity. And then once we collected the data, then we did a comparison of those three individuals against the data, and basically it showed that the individuals were paid at market, for and base pay as well as bonus, but they were very high on the equity. So they had
Oh,
much higher
interesting.
equity given to them than their peers. And the leader basically said, "Hey, that's great, but I don't want to show that to my board. Can you do a presentation without that information?" And our response back was no. We
Mm,
really think the board needs to see an entire picture of your three individuals, you being one of them, and then they can make a decision whether your pay is appropriate or not, in those different areas. So yeah, so it was one of those situations where, like, whoa, hold on, we're not gonna cherry pick stuff here to make you feel better and present something to the board. So our final report that went to the board had the complete package, and it was you know, will we get work from them again? We don't know, but we think we will because we've done a lot of great work for them, and I think that's an example of a kind of ethical dilemma, with a client that we really think the right thing to do is present this to the board in the right way, and that's kind of how we operate.
This is a interesting conversation because there's really two ways that you look at this. One is if you're an internal HR practitioner in an organization, you, in my mind, need to be above reproach. So if something ethical is not happening or something, you know, unethical is happening, you need to make sure that you let your manager know, you need to let corporate, governance know, you need to let whoever know that, hey, this is happening, and you just body block it and
right.
make sure that it doesn't happen. And that's what you do, and that's what I've always done at every company that I ever was an internal HR practitioner. Now, however, when you're a consultant, it's a bit different because you are in a situation where at the end of the day, you're going to be in and then you're going to be out. And so how much do you really want to push the client? Because at the end of the day, it's their business, it's their responsibility. I've always had the viewpoint of I'm going to go on record. As long as I went on record with you and I've said this is not a good idea. You shouldn't do this because of X, Y, and Z. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you call the shots. It's your company, but I wouldn't do it. Now, obviously, there are also situations with any company, whether it's you're an internal practitioner, you're running a consulting firm, there are things that happen that are just so egregious that you don't want to be a part of them, and you need to say
Yeah.
no amount of money is worth it, and we're gonna exit. There's a lot of people that have gotten in trouble at a lot of companies over the years where they just said, I'm back to your point earlier, Ryan, before pre-show, is I'm just going to have the error of omission. I'm not going to say anything that SBF was doing. I'm not going to talk about what
Yeah,
Sam Bankman-Fried was doing.
yeah.
I'm just going to be really quiet and get my money and let it all play
Let it
out.
let it
So
be.
that's the
Let it be.
thing. Let it,
Yeah.
let it be. And you have to not play that game. You've got to be above. You got to
Right.
be above reproach.
So
So
I
how?
want
Go
Ryan,
ahead.
I got just a piggyback thing. As a recovering marketer, when I owned an ad agency, I would tell clients, either the CMO or the C-suite, when I was pitching them, I'm like, listen, internally, your marketers have great ideas, but they can't tell you those great ideas because those great ideas will get them fired.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, because they're going
Yeah.
to be scary. I know we're talking about marketing,
Hmm.
not HR, so it's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
different. And I said, listen, as an outside consultant, as an agency, I can scare you, and you can just fire me.
Mhm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's okay.
Yeah.
But internally, you think of, Janet, the CMO, she's got two kids in private school, she's got two different mortgages,
Mm-hmm.
she's got all this stuff. How much risk is she going to put in
Mm-hmm.
front of a really big idea, put the political equity behind a big idea? Now, put all that aside to say, I think it's actually easier as an outside consulting firm to be ethical and to show ethical kind of
Mm-hmm.
dilemmas and things like
Yeah.
that and kind of
Yep.
point things out than it is internally. Because I think internally that VP of HR, they know all the dark crevices, they know
Mm-hmm.
all the pay inequity, they know the sexual
Yeah.
harassment claims, they know all the dark stuff. And now they found something really completely unethical. How hard of a discussion is that for them to roll into the COO or CFO's office and go,
Mm-hmm.
by the way, here's this really
It's
Yeah.
unethical
Yeah.
Yeah.
thing.
it has a low probability of happening because they have the same problem that Janet in marketing
Right.
does because
That's right.
she has the CHRO has three kids in private school and has a
Right.
bunch of stock that's about to
Hmm.
vest,
Mm-hmm.
and
Good
just bought
point.
her
Mm-hmm.
second
Yeah.
vacation home, and like, am I really gonna rock the boat? And
Mm-hmm.
Right.
look, here's the thing at the end of the day. So if you are sitting somewhere today and you're a senior level person and you know that there's an impropriety going on within your organization and you're looking at Yahoo News or Google News, and then you see the CEO of Boeing say, yeah, we did retaliate against whistleblowers. Yeah, we did do that. So the CEO of Boeing is admitting to Congress that they retaliated against whistleblowers. What am I going to do? What am
Yeah.
I capable of being able to do in terms of change? And so when we talk about, doing the right thing, when we say, hey, if you see something, say something. But yet at the end of the day, anybody who ever has been a whistleblower or brings anything up gets
Hmm.
persecuted. We never put our money where our mouth is. And then this is why we have things like, Sam Bankman-Fried, who nobody says anything because they're all worried about what's going to happen to them. So
Sure.
we don't live, most companies don't live their own set of values. They don't live their
Right.
credo.
Yeah.
Where's
Yeah.
that line? Where's that ethical line that an organization um, can't cross or can cross with the
Mm-hmm.
employee population? I'll say in my mind, I'm thinking white lies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Situational. We were talking about that
Mm-hmm.
situational line,
Mm-hmm.
like omission. What is
Mm-hmm.
good and what is bad? What's that level of I can't
Mm-hmm.
scare the employee population because I still need them to perform, and
Mm-hmm.
this information really isn't pertinent to their everyday job. So they are
Mm-hmm.
kind of on a need to know basis. What's your
Yeah.
thoughts around that? There's a lot there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, from my perspective, in making a decision, I always use, the question, you know, how would I feel if this decision showed up in the morning newspaper the next day? Could I support it, if it became public? And the challenge we have now is that everything is public. Terminations are on TikTok. Terminations and where employee issues and counseling sessions are on LinkedIn. So you've got to
True.
be very, very careful with your decision making and what you do and what you don't do, or what you omit and what you don't omit. I mean, we've had situations where we were working on an M&A transaction where one of the key leaders was a sexual harasser, and the company did not do a good job of investigating. And I think we ended up having to say, look, either you get rid of this
Risk,
person,
risk factor, risk
yeah, you
factor.
get rid of this person before the deal closes, or we don't move forward with the deal. We had to get to that point because and I used the morning paper example with the executive, and he came back about a couple hours later and said, "Yeah, I think I don't want him in the organization." It's like it wasn't
Yeah.
my decision. Made it on his own. Uh,
Ray, the tough part there, sorry to
yeah,
interrupt, the tough part there is when they're high potentials. Excuse
yeah,
me, high performers, not high
yeah,
potentials. When they're
right,
high performers, usually in sales,
hmm
usually guys,
yeah,
and they're killing quota, and
hmm
oh, by the way, they're horrible human beings,
yeah,
that
yeah,
really throws people into a tailspin.
yeah. No, it does. It
Oh, it's
does.
hard. It's
Yeah,
hard.
it's really hard. Yeah, and in this example, we did not bring the person over in the acquisition, and we got so much feedback from employees the day after because they all knew.
Wow. Yeah,
All the employees
of
knew.
course it
All
did.
the females knew. So bringing somebody over that's toxic into your company, that's an example where we've used, no, we're not doing the deal unless you do something about this person. And they were a high
It's
potential
it's
high
it's not
Right.
performer.
good. It's not good for
Yeah.
you if you
Mm-hmm.
do this deal. The
Right.
Yeah.
transaction is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah. How I'd
Jason.
answer that question, Ryan, is that we used to work at a company, Ray and I, and that
Mm-hmm.
every quarter, and I mean, I'm not joking. I tell people this, and they said, no, it couldn't be. But every single quarter, the CEO would say, "This is our most important quarter ever." At the beginning of the quarter, and we have to execute. It's our most important quarter ever. And then he
If
would
it's the
never.
if every
Go
quarter is
ahead.
the most important, none of them are
Uh-huh.
the most
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, but
yeah,
and then so you ask, what do you divulge? Well, okay, if you're going to tell me every quarter is the most important quarter, then give me a little bit of information. It's the most important quarter ever because our new product in this division is rolling out, and we have to show incremental sales in
right.
order to keep up with this customer. Because if we don't, it will be, it won't be good for, our ongoing sales revenue. Explain to me, but don't
Yeah,
throw some platitude at me that
a
says
little
Right.
bit of
the
data.
same thing. Yeah, give me some data, dude. And so
And
that's where companies get in trouble is, or CEOs get in trouble. They want employees to resonate with some thinking, but they don't give them any data to make
mm-hmm.
to understand why this is important. People used to laugh. I mean, people would get on the conference call and he would be sitting in a room and he'd say that and people would just bust up laughing or they would just try to predict when he was going to say it. So, you've got to be able to give employees information that will allow them to do their job and execute to the best ability that the company needs them to.
So one of my first presentations, public presentations, is 2007, 2006, is I'm following a gal named Amanda Height. Wonderful person, really super positive. Energy in the room was just electric. And my bit was, you can't handle transparency. So stop fucking asking for it. So
Mm-hmm.
I get up in front of everyone and I just said, listen, here's the deal. Everyone says they want transparency. Very few people can actually handle transparency. So let me go ahead and let's just play this out in front of you. And I'm got slides and doing a whole bit. I'm like, okay, listen, we've got to let go 20% of the workforce. There's only so many seats on the boat. You want that transparency? You want to be able to make decisions about people's careers and lives and livelihoods? You want that transparency? So I went through a series of like 10 of those where it's decisions that are made at the executive and the board level that are hard. These are
Hmm.
not easy decisions. They're not something that are light. So, I was basically trying to get people to think of, hey, listen, it's an easy word to say. And it's an easy concept for people to go, yeah, I want transparency. I would like to know more. In some cases, not all, but in some cases, you'd rather not know. And I likened it at the very end before I exited the stage. I said, listen, the CIA, the DEA, the NSA, FBI, I don't really want to know what's going on. If you're toppling a government in Central America, sounds good. I don't really need to know why that is. I'm just going to assume that there's smart people figuring that stuff out. I don't want the transparency.
Yeah.
I don't need a
Yeah.
I don't need a dashboard saying
Yeah.
why we're doing it or that we are
Yeah,
doing it.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm good. So what y'all's bit on transparency? And
Yeah.
again, I'll start with Ray and then Jason.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, on transparency, I think that when we, an example, when we do M&A deals, the leaders want to start talking to the employees about, the strategy and why this makes sense for the company. And we have to push back and go, no, what's in it for me? You got to tell the people,
Smart.
what does this mean for me? My pay, my benefits. Am I going to be paid? Am I going to let go? I mean, those are the things, the transparent things that are important to employees.
Maslow's
Yeah,
hierarchy of needs at
exactly,
that point.
exactly. And then once they can go home and answer those questions to their spouses and significant others, then you can talk about strategy and why this makes sense. So I think there's a level of transparency that's needed, and then like you said, there are some things that you don't know, and we don't know, what what the downturn in the business cycle means to the company, other than it's not good. So you can make inferences based on that. But I think it's important to be transparent when you can provide information, and when
Mhm.
you can't, you got to be transparent about that too and say, "Look, we do not know. As soon as we know, we'll let you know." But that's the other part of it too.
So is
So the thing, go ahead, Ryan.
no, no, go ahead. I'll let you answer, and then I'll have a follow up for you.
You know, the thing about transparency is, I think that a lot of times leaders are very immature in terms of how they work with transparency. They either don't give enough or they give too much, and it's really difficult. So, if you look at a recent example where the CEO of Spotify came out and said, "Hey, did you see that? I was really surprised that it took us 4 to 5 months to recover our mojo from laying off 20% of the staff. I'm really surprised that people were so distracted for 5 months." And that really
Very
puzzled
Swedish.
me.
Very
Yeah, I
Swedish.
know.
Very Nordic.
Mm.
Very Nordic.
Exactly. So you
Wha-
sit there and you say to yourself, okay, that guy does not understand transparency. You have what, $10 billion in the bank, and you're not able to understand that your staff is figuring, do I stay? Do I go here? You just laid off 20% of the team. Is this even a viable place for me? That guy doesn't understand transparency. He needs to be coached on transparency. Here's another example. If right now Elliott International, which is one of the
Hmm.
most aggressive hedge funds out there right now, and they're in Southwest Airlines for $2 billion right now. Elliott is pretty aggressive in terms of how they break up companies and what they do to, in terms
Yeah.
of their saying, create value. So when you're Southwest right now, you're not going to completely divulge everything that Elliott's going to do, because if all the employees heard what Elliott's thinking about, you would have them flipping out. So you've
Right.
got to figure out, okay, how do we acknowledge Elliott's in there? How do we acknowledge what Elliott's probably going to do without really disrupting what's going on with our employee population? You have to have a level of sophistication, and you have to work with people like you who sat in an organization who said you can't handle ethical transparency, or you have to work with us to say, here's what transparency is like in this particular instance, because it's different from instance to instance.
Do you think it's a matter of leadership understanding not just the employee population, but the segments within the employee population. For example, a desk worker will consume feedback and information one way. A frontline worker may consume that differently. A leader is going to look at that and take that information differently than someone who's 3 or 4 years out of college. So, how does a leader
Mhm.
that you're working with, or just a leader in general, how do they understand their employee population and then share that information appropriately down into the organization?
Well, I think in that kind of model, you really have to kind of, drive it down into the organization with very specific talking points. It's like, here are the talking points at the VP and director level. Once you get down to manager and supervisor, those talking points become a little bit different, and more generalized.
Yeah.
You really, I mean, the organization's got to understand their population and how they consume information, and it can't necessarily always be talking points. It could be text. It could be, hitting them, on, you know, their chat, or however method they communicate with their employees. So a lot of it just has to be based on the organization and the norms that they have for communicating. Using Slack, using other methods to communicate, is becoming much more common for organizations, much more than email or other other chats. So it's just kind of depends on the organization. Jason, your thoughts there?
One of the things that managers and employees need to own is they need to own their understanding of information. So you have the C-suite that gets the information and they put it out and they say, okay, here you go. And this is the information that you need to have. And they think somehow that information is mysteriously going to get pushed down and that everybody's going to be able to translate it. So first of all, you need to be able to have that information, like Ray said, in a good written or a good communicable format that people can understand it. Now, what happens is employees are woefully um, ill-equipped, and sometimes they don't care enough to look at the annual report to understand what was our revenues this quarter. What was our revenues for the year? How do we make our money? What is our most profitable product line? What's our services revenue? So employees need to take responsibility of understanding more about how that works, and then managers need to take that responsibility to be able to tell them how that works, to tell them what those numbers and what all that means. Because what has to happen is a manager needs to be sitting with the individual contributors and be able to say, hey, look at our team does X, Y, and Z in support of our most important product. And our most important product right now is having some bumps in the road, and our revenue isn't where it's supposed to be. So when we talk about it being the most important quarter, we really need to help drive it in this fashion. And so there needs to be a lot better education and training so that everybody understands the business and understands how their particular piece of the puzzle impacts the strategy. If it's just a C-suite pushing it down and nobody else takes responsibility for understanding that data and understanding what happens, then it's just a waste of time. And so managers and employees, they own that as well too.
It's funny, Jason, in the military, they call that the what and the why, and it's based on clear intent. Everyone understands what is to be done and why. And so if you go back through warfare, through the ages, the people, the military leaders that communicated the what and the why won. The ones
Mm-hmm.
that didn't, Lee at Gettysburg, as a for instance, he didn't communicate why taking the hill was so important. And so his generals didn't understand why taking it was so important. They understood the what. We need to take the hill because we 40 miles from Washington D.C. and we can end this civil war. But he didn't communicate that. So I'll get off that for a second because I want to ask you because you brought up comp. I'll say something might seem a little bit controversial. I don't think it is. I don't think we'll ever reach pay equity. I think it's an illusion, and I think that with hybrid and remote work and global work, location-based pay or skills-based pay or whatever, I used to think it's an illusion to think that we'll ever get to a point where like number two pencils or Twinkies that people are paid exactly the same. Now, I'll stop there and let you, Ray, I'll let you tear that apart because
Yeah,
y'all are actually
yeah,
in it.
yeah,
I'm just the guy that flies
yeah.
by and says stuff. So,
Yeah.
Dave,
But
why don't you take it?
does there need to be pay equity? Let's put that
Hmm.
question out there as
Oh,
well.
snap.
Yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
oh,
I think, you know, pay equity is going to be a challenge, you know, for the next 20 years or, just because, um, you know, there's so much that systematically there's been a lot of, you know, uh, differences in how
yeah,
employees are being paid, male, female, etc. Some organizations are much better at it than others,
agreed.
uh, and really make an effort to pay for the job, regardless of, you know, sex, minority, non-minority, whatever that may be. But others, take advantage, and you're always going to have organizations that try to take advantage, and not do the right thing because of business reasons, whatever. But I think yeah, pay equity is important. As a dad who has a daughter in the tech field, a female in the tech field, I'm all for pay equity because I want her to be paid as much as a male doing the same sales job, and she's in sales, as an example. And I think she is, which is awesome.
So, Ray,
Uh,
real quick before
yeah,
Jason tells us
yeah.
his story, I had a sales leader tell me because I had,
Hmm.
well, this stuff's been bumbling
Hmm.
around my head for
Hmm.
years. So I said, they're doing these AEs, you're doing the same job.
Hmm.
Like, why do you get them in? You give them a range of salary,
Hmm.
and he goes, listen, at the end of the day, they're going to be negotiating $1 million contracts with people. If they can't stand and tell me why I should pay them a rate that makes sense within the range or whatever,
Hmm.
then why would I ever put them in the role of negotiating contracts with customers?
Hmm.
Now, I think that was all BS. I'll just tell you because I
Hmm.
know the guy.
Hmm.
So I think that was just BS. That was a rationalization for just poor
Right.
behavior of just
Hmm.
paying people more than he
Hmm.
liked. However, in that particular situation, I could kind of get the logic. It's like they've got to know how to negotiate. If they don't know
Right.
how to negotiate, they're going to get worked.
Hmm.
So then just
Yeah.
So,
don't hire
Yeah.
them. Like if they can't
well, yeah,
negotiate their deal, then it's not the right hire.
Yeah.
that's a good point, Ryan.
But I
Hmm.
understand
He
the
did,
logic, yes.
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
But
he
he
didn't
took
Yeah.
say it that
advantage and
way.
hired them.
He just
Yeah.
no, but it wasn't based. This is the irony. It wasn't
I
based
mean,
on. It wasn't based on gender. It was
No.
based on their ability to negotiate.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
yeah,
just
it's a
staying
game for the
hard.
hiring.
Yeah.
It was a game
Yeah.
for him to get them at a lower rate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a game for the salesperson to say,
He
"No, I'm
will.
not going to do that." And here's
Yeah.
why. Sell me this
Hmm.
pen.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
thing. Anyhow,
Yeah.
Jason, I
Yeah.
interrupted
Yeah.
you and
Go ahead.
on
No, no,
your.
no, it's fine. No, that's a good point. Look, if you have a male employee and you have a female employee, and they're doing exactly the same, and they're both excellent performers, and they're at the top tier of their game, then they should be paid the same. There shouldn't be a gap. However, if you're telling me that, well, everybody should be paid the same, regardless of your level of contribution or effort, then I would say, no, that's not true at all. I
Hmm.
mean,
Hmm.
No,
if you're getting paid
that's
$10,000 less than Bob, it's because you know what? Bob's better than you. And I'm prepared to tell
Hmm.
you that
Hmm.
you're getting 10 grand less because Bob is better. And this is
we
why
all
Bob
we
is
all like
better.
sports. This is
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
irony.
Yeah.
Is all four of
Yeah.
us have
Yeah.
talked about
yeah,
sports
Yeah. Yeah.
pre-show,
Hmm.
yeah,
so
Yeah.
we
yeah.
understand.
Hmm.
Yeah, Bob's
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so, well,
Hmm.
what do you mean Bob's better? Well, I'm happy to have an adult conversation with you and
Hmm.
explain
Yeah.
to you why
yeah.
you're not making as much as Bob. If you did these other things, you could be making as much as Bob, or you could be making more than Bob. And so, look, if there's reasons that somebody's not being paid because of, and they're a top performer and not
Hmm.
being paid as much as somebody else, that's wrong. We need to
Hmm.
fix those. But
Yes.
anything else is all
Hmm.
should be based upon what are you bringing to
Right.
the job,
Hmm.
and what are you bringing into the environment every
Yeah.
day. And I've had to have
Hmm.
those conversations where people have come in and
Hmm.
said, hey, I want to get paid more. I'm getting paid. And yeah, and I go, you know what, you're never going to get paid that much here. You need to leave.
Right.
And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, that's just the truth.
And it
And
turns
Yeah.
out Michael
yeah,
Jordan got paid more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah,
not that this
yeah.
is your particular stance on this question I'll ask, but I know this is conversations within organizations, so you may have come across this.
Hmm.
The historical inequities
Yeah.
from race,
Hmm.
from
Hmm.
gender, all the way through.
Hmm.
The argument that the certain people are getting paid more today because of the inequities, and it's difficult for that person, for Bob, for example, or for
To
Judy,
catch
we'll
up.
say, to catch up to make the same as Bob.
Hmm.
How does an executive team handle that? Do they just say, well, you've got 5 years of experience, we're going to start here, and moving forward we do this, or is there a path to get there?
I have
Hmm.
never worked in a company, and maybe this is really strange, or maybe people
Hmm.
aren't going to believe me, but I have never worked in a company where somebody who was of a traditionally disadvantaged background, female, Latino, whatever it is,
Hmm.
they never got less money because of that. We always worked to make sure that those people got more money. We recruited them, we went after them, and we made sure to bring them in as best possible salary as they could. And we never did anything that was, well, because they're a woman, we're going to pay them less. I've never ever seen that in my career. So when I hear these stories, it really stuns me, because every company that I've ever been at, we've always made sure that those people that the people that we need to have in positions to more adequately represent society were taken care of. So for me, that's super important. And any place that did that, I mean, I wouldn't be a part of.
Hmm.
And look, there is a factor of knowing, like we said, when Ray said earlier in the conversations, knowing what these jobs are worth, knowing what they pay, knowing
Hmm.
what the market is, and a good company hires a person at the appropriate market pay that they
Right.
deserve for the skills and experience they bring in. And
Hmm.
that's what we need to do, and that's what companies need to do. But I've never been part of anybody that ever didn't do that.
Hmm.
I think it's explaining compression, pay compression to people, making that a little bit more mainstream because I don't think the mass market understands that, okay, well, when you're going through a recession, people aren't being paid like they were prior.
Hmm.
And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden you go through this uptick and now you've got to recruit somebody. And
Hmm.
so you take $100,000 software engineer, now you got to pay him
Mhm.
250,
Right.
okay?
Hmm.
And or her. You got to pay that person 250. Well, you've got a bunch of people that you just hired 2 years ago at 100,000. So
Right.
you've already got
Hmm.
this inequity. Now, how do you get that inequity to a place where it's not an inequity?
Well, because they
Okay,
were
Yeah. Yeah.
probably lowballing from the very beginning. They've always been
Hmm.
lowballing. And so
100%.
now all of
Hmm.
a sudden I've been lowballing you, and that's a sign of a poorly run company. And now all of a
Agreed.
sudden I got to hire people in that are
I overpay.
made more. Yeah,
Hmm.
now and I got to overpay, and I'm probably going to try to
Hmm.
even lowball on the overpay. And
Hmm.
I'm just really um, messed up, in my approach.
Hmm. Yeah. No, exactly. I think that organizations now, you know, need to understand the market, and I think 90% of them do to pay the right rates of pay.
Right.
But the other side is employees coming in. There's so much data out there now that they're coming in much smarter, and they know what they're
Sure.
worth.
Yeah.
Because
I
if
got
you want
I
to know
got the
what you're worth,
Carfax. I got the
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Carfax.
Yeah.
exactly. You can go check on LinkedIn, and similar jobs that what I'm doing, and the salary ranges are in there. Boom, there you got. So you got
Yeah.
much better data to negotiate a fair pay, package.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we think the companies are trying to do the right thing.
Right.
And there may be some outliers out there, but for the most part, folks are getting paid, competitive pay, unless there's a real problem with their performance.
Yeah. We
But
we
the
did.
other thing that's
Yeah.
Good.
the other thing that's happened is that, and this is both good and bad. So I don't want people to think, oh my God, that's an old school way of thinking, because because that's not what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
But look, 10, 20 years ago, people didn't talk about their pay.
Right.
William
It was
didn't go to
taboo.
Ryan,
Yeah.
hey, yeah, hey, I'm getting paid this amount. people didn't talk about it, and
Hmm.
so it was kept quiet. I think paid transparency is good to know what people are making. However, what people fail to take into account is that um,
Context.
people lie, and they tell them that, hey, they tell them
There's
I'm
the
making
cynic
10.
we love.
Yeah, I'm making 10 grand more than you, or I'm making five
Yeah.
grand more than you, or
Just so
Right.
I can lord it over you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I negotiated
Yeah.
2 more weeks of
Hmm.
PTO.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. But then they're like, then the person sits there and go, oh my God, they cut that deal. They got that deal. And
Yeah.
then you find out because they'll come to you and they'll say, hey, so and so, hey, Bob once again is making this amount of money. No, Bob's not making that amount of money.
Yeah.
That's not true. They lied to you. And so, you talking amongst your buddies about it at work is cool, but they lie and you don't have the right information all the time. So that's another problem with pay
Yeah, yeah.
transparency.
Yep. So true. So true.
All right, last thing, real quick. You all have a podcast. Tell us a little bit about your podcast and where people
Yes.
can find it.
You couldn't find it. That's probably not so hot that you
No, no,
couldn't
no, no,
find
no.
it.
I just want them to find it.
Your
I want
podcast
them to
sucks
find it.
so bad.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
couldn't
So,
find it.
so
I Googled
bad.
it. I went to Ask Jeeves. I went everywhere.
Nowhere,
Nothing.
nowhere,
Ask
nowhere
Jeeves.
found.
There you
Yeah,
go. I
yeah,
love
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
That's good.
yeah. No, we
Wow.
do a weekly podcast on LinkedIn Live,
Oh, cool.
and then and generally we talk about relevant HR topics. Today I think we did one on resilience and why it's important to have resilience as a person, as well as a professional. And we post those on LinkedIn, on our website, as well as we put them out on YouTube. So
And
Jason, you
they're
want
on
to yeah,
Spotify, and they're on Spotify, so you can find them on
yeah,
Spotify, YouTube. You can find
hmm
them on our LinkedIn site, and you can find them uh, on our webpage. So they're all
yeah.
over the place. And we've talked about lazy girl jobs. We've talked about quiet quitting. We've talked about just about everything that's out there.
The
I want
TikTok
to do loud.
quitting.
I want to do loud quitting. Just have that
Yeah.
radio. Remember that
Yeah,
video where the guy's like got the radio and he's just going
yeah,
through the whole
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah.
through the
yeah,
boombox.
yeah.
Y'all have been
Loud
so
quitting.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for carving out time in your day
Yes.
and educating us and educating the audience. We just absolutely thank you.